The director of the Center for Social Policy Studies and associate professor in the Department of Economics at the University of Ghana, Professor Oduro, has questioned the decision by managers of the economy to demand more tax from the citizenry after failing to show them benefits for the current ones they're paying. Speaking at the 14th Boundary Memorial Lectures, Professor Oduro said until government addresses the inequality in taxation, it is not prudent to be burdening the taxpayer with additional levies.
Government's budget is skewed towards consumption expenditure. It has difficulty achieving its target for development expenditure. A reassessment of government spending is required, and in addition, government must also consider improving its tax effort. The fiscal position must be improved. However, we must look beyond the size of the fiscal deficit and interrogate the size of government spending and revenues, the composition of government spending, and which groups bear the burden of taxation. Madam Chair, Ghana's ratio of government spending to GDP and the ratio of government revenue to GDP is below the African average. The recent rebasing of the gross domestic product, which revealed that the economy is much larger than was originally thought, reveals that the tax and spending ratios are much lower than we thought them to be. This means that government must ramp up its tax collection effort. This will provide it with the fiscal space to increase spending in ways that will contribute to the well-being of its citizens. Now, political economy comes into play here. Whose expenditure and income should be taxed? The answer I provide is that the burden of taxation should be minimized for people at the lower end of the income distribution. This does not mean that they do not pay taxes, but that the share of their income that is paid as taxes should be lower than the share paid by higher income groups. Neither individuals nor companies enjoy paying taxes. Which groups are more likely to successfully resist being taxed? The withdrawal of the tax on luxury cars could provide an answer. We need more tax revenue to finance our social spending and investment in infrastructure. But why should formal sector workers and indeed formal sector or formal businesses, a very easy group to target in an economy where the informal sector is so large, why should this group pay more taxes when they are already paying so much? Why should we pay more taxes when there is evidence each year of embezzlement, waste, and downright theft of taxpayers' money? Why should we pay more taxes when the quality of public services that these taxes are supposed to finance leaves a lot to be desired? Why should we pay more taxes when anecdotal evidence suggests that some of us have to make unauthorized payments to revenue collectors which do not enter the state's coffers? The official tax ratio may be lower than the actual if these anecdotes are more than just anecdotes. If tax revenues are to be increased in order to create more fiscal space, government must address the issues just raised. In addition, government must explore ways to make it easier for us to pay the required levies and taxes. Sometimes there's just too much effort to pay that we have to put in to pay some of these fees.
Now, addressing concerns on poverty levels and the well-being of the citizenry, Professor Oduro said, contrary to the attractive macro figures showing a growth in the economy, not many are feeling the impact in their pockets. She proposed some solutions to dealing with the existing challenge.
The economy may register positive growth, but if this growth is not widely shared, low levels of well-being may be widespread. I propose that the slowdown in the progress made in poverty reduction and the downward trajectory in the well-being indicator in the recent past can be explained by the slowdown in Ghana's growth rate, the increase in inequality, and the structure of the economy. The national accounts show that people were hurt by the slowing down of growth. Household consumption expenditure declined. There was a negative growth rate in 2015 and 2016. Household consumption will shrink if there's a decline in wages and/or employment because of a slowing down of economic activity. Unfortunately, we do not have data published on a regular basis to track changes in employment and wages and salaries. The lack of progress in reducing poverty was also because of the increase in inequality. Inequality is manifest in several dimensions. There's inequality in educational attainment, with persons at the upper end of the income distribution having more years of education than those at the bottom end. There is inequality in access to health facilities, with some regions having a better doctor-patient ratio than others, and having availability of health personnel with specialized skills. There is gender inequality in wages and salaries, wealth and educational attainment. There's inequality in access to potable drinking water. These inequalities mean that some groups of people are handicapped, limited, and constrained from taking advantage of the opportunities that economic growth may provide. Inequality means that some people are more vulnerable to economic slowdowns, especially in the absence of safety nets. The economy has gone through structural transformation with a decline in agriculture's importance and the expansion of the services sector. However, further structural transformation is required if good macroeconomic performance is to be transformed into improved well-being. Agriculture's contribution to the gross domestic product and its share of employment has been on the decline since 2000. About 38% of employment is in agriculture. This decline in agriculture notwithstanding, it remains dominant in the rural economy, employing about 65% of the workforce. But agriculture is a low productivity sector. This may explain why the bottom 50% of the rural population have registered declines in consumption expenditure in the context of overall growth in GDP.